free good news. You know, a lot of us take low-dose aspirin to reduce the risk of heart disease. That's well known. But did you know that low-dose aspirin, according to some really good studies, prevents the spread and growth of cancer? And this is not it has not been as widely disseminated for obvious reasons. But the story is very important. Low-dose aspirin prevents the spread and growth of cancer. Researchers from Oregon Health and Science University in Oregon State found that the same daily doses of aspirin used against strokes and heart attacks also carouse cancer cells, blocking them from traveling to other parts of the body. The researchers found over 10 years ago that aspirin appeared to play a role in preventing cancer spread, but they didn't know how it worked. And now they do know how it works. Aspirin does not kill cancer cells, but it does appear to prevent tumors from spreading. And it doesn't work directly on cancer cells. Instead, the miracle drug called aspirin has to do with its relationship with platelets in the blood. And I'm not going to read you the details of it. You can find it yourself. And it dulls the response of this traveling of the cancer cells. Now, okay, we know that in the 1980s, researchers discovered that taking low doses of aspirin, 80 mgs a day, can help protect against strokes and heart disease. But 10 years ago, they also noticed it seemed to have an effect against cancer as well. And the latest research confirms that. You should know that regular aspirin does the same thing. It's just that people don't take the full 3 1/4 for the associated bleeding. I happen to take a high dose of aspirin, by the way, every night. I have a doctor friend who takes a high aspirin in the morning and at night, by the way, and we don't bleed. So now you're going to read the researchers don't recommend that people start using aspirin without doctor's report. All right, do what you want. I recommend you read the AJP Cell Physiology Journal, and you'll see what the miracle is called aspirin. And by the way, in the years I was an herbal medicine researcher, a phytochemist, as it were, I remember reading about how aspirin, the drug, or aspirin, the medicine, if you want to call it that, it's still a miracle drug, the numbers of things it does, was originally discovered. And the way the story goes, and I believe it's true, was a young man whose father suffered from arthritis, had heard from a folk healers somewhere in Eastern Europe in the 1880s, I believe, that a bark from the willow tree, Salix alba, when infused in hot water, created a drink that reduced the inflammation and the associated, arthritis. So he started to look into what was in this bark, this white willow bark, Salix alba, and he discovered salicylic acid. And he then actually synthesized the synthetic version of salicylic acid called acetyl salicylic acid, known as aspirin. And his name was Mr. Bayer. That's the story, and it's obviously a true story. It's an amazing story of nature's pharmacy, and something I've studied for years and years. I was once obsessed with this topic. For 40 years, I wandered in the world of herbal medicine because nature's bounty is limitless, not only terrestrially on the earth, but under the sea. I mean, that's a whole area of study that I was once involved in very tangentially. My professor of pharmacology way back when was a man who was an expert at sea creatures and the medicinal properties found in the sea creatures. I have lost touch with him. I've lost touch with the field. But what I'm saying to you is, even in this age of iPhones and everything technological and screens and everything is synthetic and fake, well, nature isn't fake, and nature still has some pretty miraculous healing things, healing elements or such for us to find. We haven't discovered all of them by any means. When you consider that there are over 600,000 flowering plants on Earth and only a few of them have been really touched upon, the surface has only been begun to be looked at. So nature's pharmacy, great, great area. And again, we're going back to the story of low-dose aspirin prevents the spread and the growth of cancer, according to legitimate scientists at fine universities and published in a fine journal. And the journal, you can read it for yourself if you're into this, is AJP Cell Physiology. It's a great story. It's a very encouraging story. And you should not give up on natural products just because the propaganda will tell you, oh, it doesn't really work, but it can't hurt you. Go ahead, Mark. You keep taking that stuff. But if you really want to reduce your risk, take this really expensive medicine to lower your risk, or take 10 different expensive medicines. And that's how the pharmaceutical medical establishment works. Well, okay, great. There are life-saving drugs and there are life-saving doctors. But on the other hand, preventative medicine is the key for all of us, right? That's what I'm trying to tell you. That brings me right back to the God Book, which I'm going to tell you much more about in the weeks to come as the healing properties of prayer are exhibited on this show.